Hello and welcome to another episode of Can't Stop the Growth. I'm your host, Chad Peterman, and today is what I believe the first episode of 2022. We are closing in on 100 episodes, and today really excited to bring on a guy who, as I was talking to him before the podcast, is going to be showing up in and around the service titan world. So without any further ado, would like to welcome the president of Gleason Heating, Plumbing, and Electrical, Jeremy Lewis. Jeremy, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, man. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing a little bit of time. I know it can be a little bit hectic getting the new year started off. I'm so happy to that you could join us. This episode should air a few days from now. We're kicking off 2022. So I guess to start, tell us a little bit about Gleason. You guys are over there in Illinois. We're in Indy, so kind of not too far away from each other, which is awesome. But tell us a little bit about the company, what you guys are doing, and maybe how you finished up 2021.
Yeah, so we're doing about a year and a half ago. We were a primarily commercial company. We had a different name. Well, we had a longer name. We used to be Gleason and Elfring, right? And then I took it over and we just changed everything. We decided to become more of a residential company. We decided to rebrand, change our company name, change our logo, rewrap the vans, change our strategy, everything that we did to move to be more of a residential focused business. So we've done that over the past, now we're 15, 16 months in, and we're over last year. So we ended last year at about close to 40% growth as far as revenue goes, and we're actually profitable now. So that's huge, which is
the most
good.
Important thing, right?
Yeah. That's why I always the revenue numbers, and people are like, yeah, I do $30 million. I'm like, cool. Do you make any money? Because if not, didn't really make much of a difference.
Yeah.
So we've been going through that kind of, change from doing large commercial projects, doing industrial work, to switching over to being a home service business. And we added on plumbing and we added on electric. So
Awesome. So a lot of stuff I want to dive into. First, I'll start with the decision to switch. So we did this as well back in 15. We were about 70% new construction in the multifamily space, about 30% residential. And then my brother and I made that conscious decision. Hey, we're going to make this shift, and we're going to go full into residential. So what were some of the factors that led you to making that decision?
a lot of it was a financial decision. Just, I don't like the way the commercial world waits. I don't like that 90 days is like a thing that people are just okay with. Me and my brother are partners right now.
Awesome.
And we bought the company from my dad. My dad is a mechanical and electrical engineer. So commercial was his thing. I started out, my big thing was sales. So I had got into sales, and early in sales, I had done residential sales. And I always liked that world. I like the marketing aspect. I like the, I like everything dealing with the residential home. And more importantly, I want my years to be repeatable. I want repeatable business. I want consistent business, and in the commercial world, and I'm sure it's just because you got a giant contract this year, there's obviously no guarantee you get it next year. And you do have maintenance contracts and things on service commercial, but it's not the same. It's not a repeatable business model the same way that residential is. So we had been, and I had been stalking lots of other companies in our area and Nextdoor companies and everything. And I knew that's what needed to happen to get us to that next level.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think you pointed out a lot of good things. If there's listeners out there that are thinking about making that shift, think about the things that Jeremy just pointed out. 90 days to get paid. In the residential business, I always tell my technicians, I kind of joke, I say, no, I don't care. If you got to stay for dinner, you do whatever. You're not leaving until you get paid. We do the work and then we get paid. And then, I think the great point that you brought about that I didn't even really think about, I've thought about it, but not when you said it sank in a little bit more, is repeatable. You go out and hunt down these contracts. Well, what's to say they're going to be there next year? And usually it's a race to the bottom. There's no relationship building in the commercial space. It's great. You did that project for us last year. We're still going to need the lowest number possible.
Yeah.
at all cost. And then you throw in rising material costs and having to hold prices and different stuff like that can just be a little bit crazy. So I commend you for making the switch. I guess as you've made the switch, what's been some of the hurdles? You know, obviously there's the obvious ones out there, but what would you say are some of those things that you maybe didn't expect when you went to go make the switch? You're like, oh crap, forgot about that, and then you've kind of had to work through those.
Well, so it's a couple of things. One, the first hurdle, which I kind of expected was going to be there a little bit, but it depended, was I had to go to my team of guys and people who have worked here for a long time and say, hey, I know that you've worked here for 25 years. And I know that you know the business really well, but hey, we're going to change everything completely overnight, really quickly. And by the way, don't worry, we're still going to work. It'll totally be fine. And then have, a room of people look at me like, this guy is going to run us down. What is happening? So that was part of it. And the other one though was the internal sustainability that I didn't actually know we had the full capability of doing. The best advice that I got when going through this was set up a call center, like a really good call center. And so what a call center, my definition of a call center 2 years ago to what I think of it now, the call center to me is if not the most important, it's pretty damn up there as far as importance in your company. So that was one thing I had to learn. I mean, I really had to learn more about how to set up a call center and how to be successful with it so that you're busy all the time. That was the biggest learning hurdle for me was getting this implemented.
Yeah, that's huge. I think I would agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that a lot of people are scared because of that. Hey, you sign up a big commercial project. Hey, that's 8 months of work. Both internally and to the people running the show is that your guys look at you like, well, what if there isn't any work tomorrow? And
Yeah.
you're in charge of putting that work on the table. And I don't know if you would agree with this or not, but in setting up a call center, I think one of the most important things is you have plenty of business coming in. Oftentimes it's you never book the call in the first place. And that's Nextstar's big thing is book the call, book the call, book the call.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty of work. It's just we have to have the right kind of scripts and processes and different things like that on the front end to make sure that we get that work booked. And then all of a sudden our guys are busy. Would you say that that's kind of one of the things as far as a call center that you kind of went through to, kind of get the sustainability needed?
Yeah. I mean, it was, you have to train your employees, but you got to train your customers too.
Yeah.
So when the people are calling in, it was instead of, hey, it's directing them to the point, right? To the point that's beneficial for both of you guys. So having that, having actually the call being a productive one, and now again, a thing we weren't doing before, now we track the calls. We track every call that goes in and out. We have recordings of them, they're graded. So it's the amount of stats that we keep now versus again before is an insane amount, but it's not bad. It's to run the business. It's not a bad thing to have the call center be a crazy part of your mind. Cause for me it is.
Yeah. I think having been in the industry and a lot of the listeners probably out there have been in the industry for a long time is that's been kind of a neglected part. It's always been that focus of go do the work.
Yeah.
What I always tell my team is we can't do any work if we don't book the call. So you can have all the fanciest plumbing tools on the face of the planet. You can be the best darn plumber ever, but if you never gain the ability to go into the customer's home, you can't show off your skill. So we got to book the call.
Well, and a big thing for us too is because we added on trades this year, or well, last year, I suppose, it was okay. Well, so I bought HVAC companies last year, but decided to open the plumbing division. I didn't buy a plumbing company. It was just, okay, we do plumbing now. We got our licensing and everything. And then it was a big call center. That's how we got plumbing calls originally, was when those calls were coming in. Hey, by the way, did you know we also do plumbing? This is the offer we're doing. And so we really kept the plumbing division busy for the first few months as we were getting going with it, just by the ability for the call center to take the calls and direct them in the right way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tell me a little bit more about adding trades. So I think that's something that oftentimes people who are looking to grow, there's always that, well, shoot, those guys over there, they're offering all three, or we could never offer this, or I don't know anything about that. What would you say were some of those hurdles when it came to offering more trades? We added electrical last year, which is going well. We're learning a lot. I think you can always say that when adding a trade. We're learning a lot,
Yeah,
what to do and not to do. But what were some of those hurdles that you guys have experienced over the last year while adding those trades?
well, I think the first hurdle, and I think this goes with every part of running the business, is, I don't feel like as the business owner, I need to be an expert in every aspect. Need to have someone around who is, right? It's the old thing, like, I don't know the answer, but I know someone who will. So the first thing is, if you can find a trusted person in the field. My plumbing division manager is somebody I grew up with, and he went out to be a union plumber, and he's a great plumber, and it just, the stars aligned when they did. So I think it helps to have someone there if that's not your expertise, to at least have something else there. And the other part is, I think the attitude of just, well, and is we've had the whole attitude moving forward, which trades and everything is just, we're just going to do it. Doesn't matter. It'll work. It'll work. We've been overly confident, which, whether that's a good thing or not, is another, so but really, as far as like the people internal, again, it's an agreement from what you have with people, always, telling your vision to the people that work with you. And obviously the most of all is, you got to stay organized, because, you have to treat it like a separate entity, but also keep it as one family, and get the departments to work with each other as opposed to against each other.
Yeah, that's great advice. I want to dive into something you said that I think is just hypercritical as it relates to leadership and leading your company forward. As you said that we've always just kind of had the attitude it'll work out, and I may not be the expert, but I know someone who does. Tell me a little bit more about how you carry that philosophy throughout your whole company. And what I mean by that philosophy is that idea that it'll work out, we'll figure it out, we're going to make some mistakes, but we're never going to fix or figure out anything by just sitting here and talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much, again, me and my brother, we had this agreement, and it was going forward. Okay, we're either going to say F it and just go full force, or we're just going to be in this kind of purgatory thing that we've been in forever. And so, obviously there's more planning than just that goes into it, but a lot of it is moving forward with that. Your other people, key people in part of your company, to agree, hey, this is where we want to go. And assessing everything that goes in front of you. I think you can get yourself in a tailspin too much by talking about things like too much, and sometimes I feel like, hey, you have one action, let's complete that one action. Okay, it's completed, let's not think about it, let's move on to the next, right? And so that's how I had the conversation I like to have with everybody is, don't worry so much about, I mean, obviously we want to plan, we want to have future plans, but we need to handle one thing at a time that's in front of us. And then generally it works out that way.
That is great advice. Fantastic advice for starting a new year, and having a bunch of goals out in front of you. Is you can sit there and stare at the board and think of all the reasons why something isn't going to work. Well, what I can tell you as a leader, that's not your job. Your
Right.
job is to present the case that, hey, this will work. And the one thing I love about Nexstar, and I know you're a Nexstar member, is that I always tell people, anytime I bring an idea, I've usually got it from another Nexstar member.
Yeah.
And what I'll tell the group is, hey, someone out there's doing it. We just got to figure out how it fits into here. And I just think that that's key. I was reading a chapter in a book that I love. It's by Maxwell. It's called Beyond Talent. And he has a quote in there. So weird that I was reading this morning. It says, where you finish in life isn't determined so much by where you start, it's by whether you start. And I think that fits in kind of with you and your brother's philosophy of, hey, let's just go, like what's the worst that can happen? We, make a minor mistake and we learn from it and then we keep moving forward. It's those people who sit around and, well, one of these days we're going to wrap the trucks. It's like, no, just go wrap the freaking trucks. Just let's go.
Well,
Let's move.
I have this way of looking at it that for the people in my company too. I'm like, listen, here's our options. We will either crash and burn and all die, or what if it works? And it's a joking way of saying it, but it's most people highlight the negatives. And it's not that I'm unaware of them. Of course I'm unaware of them, or I'm aware of them, but but what if it worked, right? Like that's a big thing, when you go to like these next start meetings, they're like, but how much is it going to cost you to not do it, right? And that's more what I look at. It's like, well, I mean, what's the worst that could happen? We fail, and then what? I don't know. I don't ever plan on that being the outcome. So I just, I'm overly positive.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's so fantastic. I mean, I talked about this on a podcast a few episodes ago about the power of positivity. And like, if you were going to lead people, like no one wants to follow the guy who thinks of a reason we can't do everything. Guess where that company's going to go? Nowhere.
Yeah.
Because who wants to follow that person? And they're never going to make any headway in doing anything. So, I've been accused of being super positive, and I don't, I'm not grandstanding for like just totally avoid reality and just go for it.
Yeah.
But like, there's a way to figure it out. And usually the way to figure that out is action. Go do something.
Yeah. Well, I'm of the belief that the only ceiling you have is the one that you set for yourself, right? So I feel that a lot of people, we can only reach this revenue amount, like it would be crazy to do anything else. Well, if you think you can only do $10 million, guess what? You're never going to do more than $10 million, and so I think that's one of those things you just have to think about is, obviously if you're going to say, hey, we're going to do $1 billion in plumbing work next year. Okay, well, that's probably not realistic, but what's a realistic goal with what you have in place and what you plan to do moving forward, and just get it done at every step. And by the end, it'll work out.
Oh, Jeremy, I love it, man. This is so awesome. So I was a big follower of the One Thing podcast, which is by Gary Keller, who created Keller Williams Realty.
Yeah.
They're huge, whatever. And this is like his spinoff. And so their big thing as it relates to goal setting, and you just said it right there, is that goals are not meant to be achieved. They say goals are to guide us how to act appropriate in the moment.
Right.
And so with that, I mean, that is just so powerful. It's like, well, yeah, I think we're going to set our goal at growing 10% next year. Like, well, that's great. But like, what would your actions look like if you set your goal to grow at 40? Now you may not hit 40, but what would you have to do in order to hit 40? What would your actions look like? And I just think that's so powerful of setting big goals and not being afraid to maybe come up a little bit short, but you're probably going to go a lot further than if you set your goals that are real. And there's times to set realistic goals. I know that people out there are just probably like, oh, wow, you can't do that. Like, well, you can.
Yeah. You have to be able to do both. I mean, you have to be real and know that, but also have growth goals that are beyond what people around you think is achievable. And I know this because, again, I had this conversation over a year ago, and I'm like, no, we're going to end this year at this. We're going to end this year over here. And, I had a lot of people who are like, well, that's just not possible. And I'm like, all right, December 15 rolls around. I'm like, yeah, look what happened. We didn't even try that hard. Wow. Look at that. Know, but it's a continual progress for it. But obviously there's no reason to be negative about anything. I don't see it that way. I also feel like there's that same, thought that, the 5 people you spend the most with are generally the people, that your version of success is the average of those. Right. And so, the guys have it hard enough. It's hard enough to be a plumber, and it's hard enough to be an HVAC guy. I don't want them to come in the office and then talk to me or one of the managers, and they're like, oh man, it's rough today, like they don't need that. They need positivity. They need someone who's they think is a champion for them, and that's
Yeah.
what we try and be is we want to give that best workplace environment.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so awesome. I'm so pumped up about this conversation. The Tell me a little bit more about that. I am totally on board with you. I know people are always looking for ways to make a better workplace or to celebrate guys or do whatever it is. What do you guys do as far as from a leadership perspective of like inspiring that positivity and that growth and that recognition? What are you guys doing there that you guys have really seen like, oh God, the guys really didn't think they'd really enjoy this, but they really love it.
So I think the biggest part first has been keeping everyone involved and being more open as a business, right? So again, the first thing is when we have these company meetings, I'm putting a vision out there, right? Like I'm trying to tell people, hey, this is where I plan on going, and when I can't go without you guys, right? So we as a company, this is where we want to go. Does that sound good, right? Or how does that sound? And then we have opinion leaders, I guess, is the right way to do it, where other guys in the field, I want to get everyone's opinion. And I'm not saying that everything we do is a democratic vote, because it's not. But especially the senior guys or guys that people respect, we get their opinion about stuff. We wanna know, from the field aspect where things are looking. Because the worst thing that you can do is have a field versus office vibe. And I've been a part of that before, and that's not good. Where the office is there to support the field. The field guys are, they're very, very vital in what we do. Obviously, they're almost, outside of the call center, they're obviously the most important people. So we try and keep everyone involved, and we try and keep the mood a little bit lighter. I don't ever want to have a negative company meeting. So there are times for one-on-ones and reviews, and that's the times where we'll have those conversations. But everything to me has to stay positive in a group setting. And if there's something that is negative, obviously that's usually when you do the one-on-ones, you can get rid of that. But I know now that it's a good place to work, and I'm very confident in that. And we do the training and all the support to get people to that place. And so if there's any negativity around too from other people, I will stamp it out real quick.
Love it. Two things that I want to definitely hit on and just reiterate to listeners out there that you can do for your people that will make just a tremendous amount of impact is giving them a vision. Most of the people on your team have probably never worked at a place, especially in the trades, that's given them a vision. They gave them a work order to go do today. And then they give them another one tomorrow and then the next day. And they never know what's coming down the pipe and they never know what they're working for. And when you take the time to write out your vision, we do it every year here and have for the past 5 or 6 years. And giving them something bigger than themselves can really, really rally your team to really do some awesome things. So I would definitely recommend that. And then the other thing that you said that I think is just really impactful and something we started last year and have really tried to, it's hard to get everybody in the same room, especially with schedules and running calls, but is to get those thought leaders, to get that perspective from the field. Oftentimes, we'll sit in office and, come up with this great process. This is going to be awesome, only to, have the guys out in the field be like, this is the most impossible thing to do in the world. Like, right. What if we just did it like this? Well, I guess that accomplishes everybody's goals. So maybe we can do it like that. So we've created kind of what we call round tables, where we take kind of a stakeholder from each department, whether it be dispatch, call center, accounting is a big one, and then the field, and then say, hey, here's what we're looking to solve. This is why it's a problem. How should we do it? And then you get everybody kind of coming up with a solution.
We do the same thing as far as kind of training as well. So I know like you've got this big training setup. So I just this year, well, last year again, built a nice classroom, with the pull down thing, like all elementary school style. It's great. We got
get the desks.
We got the projector. We pulled it down. It's awesome. And we're building out a training lab right now too, where we can, we're setting up a bathroom all in plexiglass, and And so anyways, we have this cool stuff going up, but one of the best things that we've found as also a team building thing is we asked some of the senior guys what topic they would like to teach our apprentices.
Mm.
And we'll say, hey, these are the options we want to do as a class, but like, hey, who would like to hold a class? We had a surprising response of the senior guys who were like, well, yeah, here's my idea, here's this, and they come prepared, and we'll teach a class to them. And it's good because it gets them involved, and also the apprentices, they see that other aspect in it. So for training, I think keeping your roundtable, your kind of senior guys involved in that is super important.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, if any listeners are out there in the home services business, what's the one thing we try to get technicians to not do? Talk super technical to the customer. Hey,
Yeah.
we need to dumb it down for them. Well, this is their chance to, just talk about what they love,
Oh yeah.
and that's the trade, and then they can help, those younger plumbers or HVAC techs or whatever it is that are coming up. This is their chance to kind of show off their knowledge. And I think it creates such a bond too, because the younger guys and gals are looking at these like, oh my God, I want to be that when I get all this experience. And then for them to take the time out of their day to teach them, I mean, they pulls them closer together for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we've had people even bring up stuff that's maybe that I guess I wouldn't have thought of,
Hmm.
So my operations manager is really kind of running as the director of training too. But one of our field guys, he had asked what's a specialty, and he's like, oh, I'd like to teach field math. And he taught a geometry class, and it was so good to think of it that way, because again, we're sometimes we don't think even down to that basic point where he's like, no, I'm just going to teach a math class. And that's what we did. We just taught a math class. And I found that especially in this aspect, our industries in general are filled with a lot of super bright guys who maybe didn't show that skill in school growing up, and then they get into these things and they're like, yeah, I'm really good at sizing pipe and making transitions or whatever the case may be. I'm like, oh, so you're great at geometry. Awesome. But
Yeah.
then it's just the terms change as you become an adult.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about it often, like, yeah, especially as it relates to like metal and stuff. Like you just took a flat piece of metal and were able to do all, like, my mind doesn't work like that. But yeah, there's some guys out there that, and gals too, that, it's just like they can see it before it's there. And it's pretty cool for them to be able to teach all the tips and tricks to some people coming up. Obviously, you mentioned you work with your brother. I
Yeah.
work with my brother. He's just on the other side of the wall over there. Tell me about that dynamic. I'm sure that there's plenty of, if even if you're not brothers or sisters or related, but you got a partner. Tell me a little bit about that dynamic and how you guys make it work.
So we have two older brothers too that are also in HVAC.
Oh wow.
That they don't work for us, but
Okay.
they have worked here previously, but I don't think so I'm the youngest of four.
Okay.
Um, but so me and Josh, my brother, we lucked out. We have a very good relationship because what we do is different. My
Yep.
brother has an MBA in finance. He is our controller. He is a great business mind. He's a good financial mind, but he doesn't want to run. He's not going to run the sales, run the business as far as that day-to-day thing, because he's like the behind the scenes type thing.
Yep.
And I'm the opposite. I need to be out and I need to be out doing everything. I need to be teaching sales. I need to be training. I'm obsessed with the numbers in a stat portion. So we really, luckily, we don't fight and get into stuff because I think we both trust enough. If he tells me to stop spending money, I'll do it. Whatever that case may be, it actually works out pretty good. And I think we're one of the lucky combination of family who's doing it.
I hear you. Yeah, I think that that different skill set is key. I'm sure everybody's had someone who's reached out and said, "Hey, let's go into business together. Let's go do this." And yeah, my advice as well, and really your experience has been fortunately mine as well, is you need to find someone who like enjoys something different. Because if you enjoy the same stuff, there's really no need for you to be partners because you're not
No.
gaining anything by the relationship. It's just you got two opinions about
Yeah.
something.
That's what I feel like. If, two salesmen to get together and start a business, to me is not the best,
Yeah.
uh, not the best formula. Right. So like me having both of us together, I'm more extroverted. He's more introverted. I always equate it to like my brother's like the Godfather. He's in the back and then I have to like whisper in his ear, but I make sure it gets done.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but it's just our dynamic that works for us.
Yeah.
He's okay with me running the business, and I'm okay with, I trust him with everything, with all numbers, with all money, everything. So
For
we
sure.
we have been lucky. Now my dad and other people involved, yeah, there might be that's a different story, but
Now, is your dad involved in the business too?
no, he's not.
Oh, okay. All right.
No,
So our
no, no,
dad's still involved. He started the company, so he gets to be involved.
no. I retired my parents, and then I locked the door, changed the phone number, so they are not allowed to come back even if they wanted to.
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, dad comes back many times, and he's entitled to his opinion. I look at him, and I think I was telling somebody this on a podcast the other day. As hard of a time as we give them when we do it, at the end of the day, they figured out this whole leadership thing, right? I mean, they figured it out, and we're kind of watching, but yet giving them a hard time. But they were the ones, if we think about it, who raised the people to take on the next
Oh
challenge,
yeah.
and they were able to get out of the way.
Yeah, I mean, I always give them a hard time too, but the what I do really get from it is that I truly did grow up in this company, in the industry. I mean, I never knew anything about it. My dad acquired this company before I was born.
Mm-hmm.
So, I never knew anything about it. And I have I think why I have a good perspective about stuff too is because I worked in every fashion, like I answered phones, I filed, I was driver, I mean, I did whatever was needed. And I think, I don't know, child labor laws, I don't think I got paid for a lot of it.
Yeah,
But,
I hear you there.
you
I've
know,
got some uncollected. What is that website you can go on and find?
yeah, you can
Find
find
like
if
if
you're
you've
owed money.
worked an odd job as a high schooler, and you can
Yeah.
find out they owe you $70 or something.
But you know what, it did. Now looking from it above, I understand the stress points on my dad. I definitely understand that. And I always like to say that I learned a lot more from my dad of what not to do. And I don't necessarily mean that in a negative way. I just mean he had to go through experiences where he had to learn firsthand, right? He didn't have anyone to look at and see. And I've got to look at it from behind and say, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and not do that. And it's not a slight towards him. It's just, I've learned a lot of things of what not to do. And, that's because he was the one who experienced it first.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a lot of similar feelings. And, I think the other thing too, and you may be able to speak to this given that you've kind of changed the direction of the company, but, a lot of the times, they can, with the second generation kind of taking the company and moving it forward, like, like you said, that first generation kind of gets slighted, like, well, heck, why didn't they do this? And, I think a lot of it, at least in our situation, comes down to kind of that vision. Like, my dad didn't want to do what we've done with the company, and good for
No.
him. Like, he wanted to do these things and he did them really, really well. So it doesn't matter what size company you have or how big you are or how much money you make or revenue or whatever. It's like aligning the company with what your vision is, then sharing that, as you shared earlier, sharing that with your people, and then helping go achieve something that, makes lives better.
Yeah, I mean, I think he completed what he wanted to do. He's
Mhm.
he's an engineer, and he wanted to work on industrial stuff and do giant boilers and chillers and all that stuff, which is totally cool. I just wanted to run a smooth business. So, we definitely didn't agree on vision at all, and that's where we are better to go our separate ways. But, as far as his aspect, he's completely happy with how it went because that was his vision at the time. Ours are different.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. I know that hopefully that helps. I know there's tons of people I feel like I talk to that, you know, family is intertwined in the small business at some degree. I feel like forever, whether it's not paying your kids for work, which we both experienced. We'll talk about that off air later about how we can get that money back recouped from sweeping the floors and cleaning the shop and stuff like that. But if you don't mind, what do you guys, you guys have shifted the focus. You guys have added trades. What is that big focus for 2022 you're gonna hopefully drive the business forward with?
So our main thing right now is to get plumbing where HVAC is. That's a big, and I don't necessarily mean even revenue, because I don't know if that's feasible this year for plumbing to make that much of a jump. But I mean, get there as far as processes, or our organization, our stock, our guys, the training. We are, because we were an HVAC company for a long time, we are a considerably more prepared company, right? And not better. I mean, our plumbers are great. We're growing. We bought the shop next door to us. So I mean, we're going in that direction. But I want to feel as good about that. I love plumbing as an add-on. And electric for us right now is really more generator based. We're not doing as much service with it as we will, moving forward. But the big goal is to make that huge jump with plumbing, which I think we're set up to do. And then the other part of it is hiring, right? I like to hire for what's in my head, not necessarily what's in front of me. So I'm hiring for growth. I'm intending on growing, so I'm hiring to grow. So, I'm looking for talented people to do it. And we haven't had that, like, a terrible hiring crunch that I think most people have. Where they say they can't find anybody, they can't do this. We're the one thing that we did do really well is we set up a really great training program, and we're going to continue to expand on that so that we can continue to filter people through and hire the people that we train.
That's awesome. That's some great advice. I would agree with you on the hiring piece as well. You've got to make it a priority as opposed to making it just something you're going to complain about. And most people that say they can't find anybody, I feel like have made it a priority just to complain about it because it's easy to do, right? Yeah, I can't find anybody, so I guess I'll just sit here.
Well, and I think, and I don't know how it is in your area, but I do think it's nationwide that smaller businesses, so we've got 40 something employees and growing, but a lot of what we've got here is 1 and 2 man shops. And then we've got 200, 300 employee shops. There's not a lot in between. And I think those smaller shops are just getting more minimal and minimal because it is a more aggressive market these days, because of the internet and things. There's a lot more choices than people used to have before. So you really have to establish yourself as a premier service company to continue to grow and be in that kind of weird area, that we're at right now, which is we're growing. We have a fair amount of employees, but we're, not at, obviously we're not at 500 or something like that. I've got a couple in my market that are, so we've got to navigate that path.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys are at such a fun spot with, just, I feel like when we were at like that 40 to 50 person, like that jump up, there's a whole lot of, you're still getting to bootstrap things and like getting to pull it all through and all of that stuff, but you're also seeing like exponential results as well. It's not like, oh, well, I'll go do this and we completed one more job. It's like, oh shoot, like if I work on this, like we could blow this thing out. This would be awesome. So good luck to you guys, man. It's awesome.
That's where we're at right now. And that's why I'm saying plumbing, I know, is going to take this big jump, because it's like we've done all the things to get there. And now I know it's just going to explode forward. So
Yeah, for sure. I would say the other thing too, and I don't know if you agree or disagree with this, is that when it comes to adding a trade, one of the things that I would tell listeners to keep in mind is that all trades are different.
Yes.
There are some similarities, but they are different. So be prepared for that. I was with you when we added plumbing. I think we added it, tore it down, added it again, tore it all the way down. I think we did it like 3 times before we finally got the right like thing to move it. I think one of those hurdles was just like not thinking that it was different. Like, well, it's just a trade. You just do it like this. And,
Yeah.
you got different personalities, you got different ways of thinking, different ways of doing things. There's similarities you'll find and you can run things, but I think it's important to view them as different.
Well, I think any point on any sort of growth or add-on is you have to be comfortable with failing and understand that you are going to fail, because
Yep.
you will.
Yeah.
You're going to fail for sure at some aspect of it. And you just move on and know not to do it. I mean, nothing's ever 100% successful, but you sure can get pretty damn close.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Jeremy, it has been an absolute pleasure. It's amazing how many similarities we have with each other and companies, obviously, hanging out here in the Midwest as well. As it relates to just kind of leaving listeners with something that, you've learned over the past, you know, whenever year or so as you kind of made this transition, what's one thing that you've like really learned that's been kind of like an aha for you, like, oh my god, like, god, if I only would have known that, or like, I'm really glad we learned this, we are gonna really do some cool things because we learned whatever it may be.
I think a big one is, if you want everyone that works for you to care as much about the customers as you ask them to, you need to care about them just as much.
That's fantastic. That's kind of our motto as well. In everything that we do is, so often we preach and preach and preach about, well, take care of the customer and do right by the customer and the revenue will follow and all of this, but yet we treat our people like crap. And you hear it from people you interview and stuff like that, of like, they just work us into the ground, and that's one of the things that we are really, really focused on this year is, if we're going to truly say that we're customer service oriented, then, we better put our money where our mouth is, especially when it comes to our own people. They're easy to overlook.
Exactly. They're often the most neglected and also most necessary.
Absolutely. Well, again, Jeremy, thanks again for your time. Listeners, I think that there is a ton to learn from what Jeremy has shared with us today. I think there's a ton of insight into running the business. I think there's a ton of insight into, kind of the mentality, I think, is the biggest thing that I took from you that I'm really impressed with, of, having that positive attitude, erring on the side of initiative and making stuff happen and being okay with failure. That's how we move the needle. That's how we're going to move our companies forward, is we're going to act. We're not going to sit around and talk about it. And, there's a time for analyzing, things. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, you got to jump and you got to go for it. And you got to want to create something special. And you need to share that with your people, and you'll get them all rowing in the same direction when you care about them, when they know where you're going, and when you can lead the charge with that positive thinking of, it's going to be okay. We will all figure this out together. Listeners, again, thank you for joining us on another episode. If you can, Jared, who produces the podcast, and myself have, well, he doesn't know this yet, but we are setting a goal. I think right now we've got maybe like 10 or so reviews. Jared, what do you think? I think 250 by the end of the year is what we're going to aim for. And we'll try our darndest. But if you're a listener and you enjoyed what Jeremy had to say, if you enjoyed what one of our other guests have had to say, please leave us a review. That way others can find us and learn something. 2022 is going to be a year of learning, and it's going to be a great year. I know it's going to be a great year for Jeremy and the fine people over at Gleason. So we'll keep an eye out for them and see how we can help. I know that they've helped a lot of people today. So with that, keep growing out there. And until next time, we'll see you.